exactly 7 o'clock, so we will begin. I think most people know me, but I am Jeremy Smith. I'm Chairman of the Parish Council, and therefore I'm automatically Chairman of this meeting that we're starting with now. Let me just introduce two people that you don't necessarily know. Mike Hill here, who is the County Councillor for our area, and Johnny Shilton, who is the Ashford Borough Councillor for this area. I'll say a bit more about them later. Now, the first thing for me to do before we even start the annual parish meeting is that I have another little duty to do. As some of you have heard in the past, there is an organised or a scheme that's the CALC, which is Kent Association of Local Councils, CALC Community Awards Scheme, and every year there's an opportunity for the parish council, if they wish, to nominate someone or a group for the special work that they've done helping the community. It's always very much a community award, and it's supported by the Association of Local Councils, which we're a member of, Kent County Council, and the High Sheriff of Kent. And the three of them will sign each award if they're happy with it. And the award today that I'm going to present is to the Wittersham's Wednesday Weeders. It says here, awarded for their unstinting commitment to improving the village. They have transformed a footway, making it accessible to all, and the memorial garden, a lovely place in which to relax. So I have the honour to present this, and I think Hilary is the leader of the group. Most of the group are here. Would you like to come out and then you can have your photograph taken? That's the best part. Do you want all the group to come? Come on. Do you want all the group to come? Come on. You won't leave Hilary feeling a bit lonely then.
Oh, you don't know. Me?
Yeah.
Yes, you definitely need to
All your hard work. Yes.
Right, and that's all one on the end.
Right. Do hold this with your other hand, I think. Somehow or other, that's it.
Right.
Are we all looking in the right direction?
Smile.
Well done.
Got this?
Have you met this woman?
Good.
Well done.
Well done. Right. So as I said, we'll start the programme with the annual parish meeting. It's a statutory event. All parish councils have to have one each year. It's the opportunity for having an open session at this time of year for residents to raise what they want to, ask questions, make points, etc. And then after that we'll have our parish council meeting, which is the one we have every month. People are welcome to stay to listen at that meeting if they want to, including usual public session, but that's not obligatory. The first part of that will be the public session as usual. So now on with the annual parish meeting. You've got an agenda on your seats, and oh sorry, you can share. Okay. And you'll hear the usual reports as it explains, which cover the period from April 2023 until now. And then one other point, I will cover, or hope to cover, matters arising from last year's meeting as I go through the parish council report for this year. So if we start now then with the apologies.
Councillor Alan Lloyd-Smith is away and Councillor Sumash isn't well.
Right. To confirm the minutes of the annual parish meeting that we held last year on the 14th of March, there are some copies of them on the seats as well. They're quite lengthy, I know, because it helps other people who weren't here to know what happened. Can I have a proposer that I sign them as a correct record?
Yes.
Someone at the back, Alf. And a seconder? Nicholas. Is everybody happy then that I sign them as a correct record?
Yes.
Good?
Yeah.
I shall do that. Do you want each page initialed?
Please.
I was going to ask you actually if that was right.
There we go. If they want to use that, if they want to use that,
Right, so now we move on to the reports, and the first one will be from Councillor Mike Hill, who I've already mentioned, is our county councillor. He is a county councillor of long standing. He left the county council cabinet just last year, where for many years he'd held the portfolio for community and regulatory services, which is a whole range of things: the libraries, the registrars of births, marriages and deaths, culture, public protection and police liaison, trading standards, countryside matters, you name it. He did that for many years, and although he's not on the cabinet anymore, he continues to represent Tenterden and a clutch of the surrounding villages. So Mike, over to you for your report.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you very much for inviting me again this year. As you said, I've decided last year to stand down from cabinet. I've done 18 years of it, and that was quite 18 unbroken years, which was quite long enough, and time somebody else had a chance of running it. But I really enjoyed it. I found it very rewarding indeed. I mean, particularly in the earlier years, frankly, when we had more money and more opportunity to do things. The last few years have been much more difficult as we had to retrench and end up reducing things rather than building things, which is not what I like to do. But still, overall, I've had a very enjoyable time. My last annual report, I did forecast some difficult, we faced some uncertain years ahead, and that certainly proved true over the last year. It has been very difficult indeed. We've had a lot of international turmoil in Ukraine and now in the Middle East, and we've had a local government and national government now focusing almost entirely on the financial strictures and financial problems we've had, which have dominated, the theme has dominated everything we've been doing. I would like to start, if I may, with the on the finance side, because that is the most important thing that's happening right now. Last year, that's the 22-23 year, was the first time in my 23 years in the county council that we actually failed to meet our budget, and we overspent our budget that year. We had never done that before. We always prided ourselves on squaring our budget away before the end of the year. We failed in 22-23. And we had to make good the shortfall out of our reserves. This year, that's 23-24, we had early warning from our outturns that we were heading in the same direction. We put an enormous amount of work in over the year to try and reduce costs, to save money where we can, to cut back where we can. But we're still probably going to have a overspend this year when the final outturn comes out. It's not in a few weeks' time. Despite our best efforts, we are unable to control our in-year costs, and the issue is our social care costs. Adults and children's social care now represent 72% of the council's budget. A huge burden. It is almost uncontrollable because of the increasing demand. We have soaring inflation and an unregulated demand, over which we have no control whatsoever. And so we find it impossible to actually control our in-year costs in these areas. And that, of course, has led to what's left of the council's activity. A lot of it was in my portfolio, a lot of the smaller stuff, being unmercifully squeezed. And that's been happening over the last year. So it's not a very pretty picture, I'm afraid. And we're going to probably, at the end of this year, have to dip into our reserves again to make good the shortfall. Well, this is not sustainable year and year and year. We can't keep doing this. So together with all other top-tier authorities, we are lobbying government as hard as we can. So this is not a sustainable way of funding local government. We've got to find a better way of this. We cannot keep every year finding money out of reserve. We're going to run out. And you may have seen in the papers that a number of councils have actually gone broke. We've seen half a dozen of top-tier authorities unable to meet their costs and have to declare to government that they no longer can sustain their councils. That's a disaster. And it's entirely due to partly, in the case of these people, mismanagement, but behind them an awful lot of councils which are well managed and are still facing some difficult problems. And it's all the problems of social care. The solution, in my view, and many people's view, is straightforward. We should take the social care out of local government. I never understood why it's in local government in the first place. It's nothing to do with local government. It's a national problem, and it's should be dealt with nationally. The problem is that we can't cope with the demand pressures, and the government cope with those sort of pressures by borrowing money. We can't do that. We're not allowed to borrow money for revenue. So we've got a fixed income, we've got ever-increasing demand, and inability to borrow. Where do we go? We've got nowhere to go. And all we can do is cut, and cut, and cut. And that's what we've been doing over the last couple of years. Well, it's not sustainable. So I hope we'll see some movement either from this government or the next government to actually find a better way of funding local authorities, because it's not a good way at the moment, and it doesn't work. So it's a bit gloomy, I'm afraid, but I wanted to explain that to you and to understand quite the sort of pressure we're under. So when you have problems with the roads and problems with this, we're not being difficult, we're doing the best we can, but we are facing intolerable pressures on our financial situation. And the reason is a static income, or reducing income in many cases, and ever-increasing demand, and nowhere else to go. We've had to increase the council tax by 5%, so I mean, I'm afraid that we had to do that. And we've had savings in some very sensitive areas, which I personally found very difficult, including a number of my old areas. I've lost a number of community wardens, I've lost a lot of the arts budgets, we've had to cut back on the household waste expenses, and. You know, you can imagine that we've cut everything we can possibly cut, and we're still going to face an overspend at the end of the year. So very depressing, but I'm afraid that's the truth. Apart from money, I'd just like to say a bit about the unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. You may have seen some headlines about this over the years too. We made a brave decision 18 months or so ago to say to government we can no longer safely look after all these hordes of unaccompanied children coming across the channel. That forced the government's hand. They agreed to mandate their national transfer scheme to put these children out elsewhere in the country. That was fine. We thought, hurrah, we've got a success there. And then a little local charity took us and the Home Office to court, claiming that we were breaking the law in the Children's Act by not looking after these children in Kent, which is what the Children's Act said we should do. They were right. We lost the judicial review, and we are now required, for the moment at least, to keep these children in Kent. We've had to build 9 new reception centres to look after them. We've got over 1,000 children now in Kent, which is squeezing our indigenous children enormously. We're back in court again with an appeal, and hopefully this will change. I mean, the Children's Act was never designed for this sort of situation. That's the trouble. But in order to change it, you've got to change the Children's Act, and that's private legislation, and that's very difficult, and it takes a lot of time. So we are hopefully to go back in court, and hopefully this will get reversed. But in the meantime, we are having to look after lots of children. Not only is it putting intolerable pressure on our own social care, social services, but it's also denying our indigenous Kent children a lot of what they should be having. So that's not good. But that's another major problem for the County Council. Another impending problem coming our way is the European Entry-Exit System, the EES, which is going to hit us in October, when people coming to and fro across the channel will have to register there themselves. But you can no longer do it by just flashing a passport and going past. You have to get out of your vehicle, out of your bus, and register. And it's going to, the forecast is going to cause some fairly heavy delays at Dover. I think the Eurotunnel has done a lot of work there to prepare for this, and I think Eurotunnel will probably cope reasonably well. I think the port of Dover will be a real problem because there's not enough room there, there's not enough physical space there to put in the measures you need. So I think getting delayed at Dover again, we've had that before, of course, again and again and again, but this will get more serious, I think, and will spill out inevitably onto the highway network. So watch this space. I mean, everyone's aware of it, everyone's doing their best, but I think it is going to be a problem. Roads and transport. I wouldn't come here and not be able to talk about the roads. I would not get away with that. There are roads. I mean, every year I say this, and every year it's true. The roads are very bad now. We've had a very bad winter, with a lot of rain, and they are bad. No beating around the bush, they're very bad. The highways are doing their best within their resources they've got. They are trying their very best to keep the roads safe. They are unable to keep the roads looking pretty. We have got a little bit of light coming our way. We did get an extra grant from government of £134 million. Sounds a lot of money. It is a lot of money. But it was spread over 10 years, or 11 years, which is quite bad. And it was also backloaded, so most of the money is at the far end, not this end. So the actual amount of money available now is not great. We've managed to, out of that, get about £6 million for this year. And that's been put straight into a pothole blitz, which has just started and will run through until August. And then we will see, I hope, some significant improvement in the roads. But I'm well aware of what they're like there. I get it all the time. And one of the worst bits, the roads are straight outside my house in Tenterden and Beacon Oak Road, which is appalling, quite embarrassing. But it will get better. And pothole blitz starts now. It's going to run through the next few months. And I hope we'll see some changes. But our shortfall on the road is about £700 million. I mean, that's the sort of money we need to get the road into the shape we want to be in. And that sort of money doesn't exist. And nationally, of course, there's an enormous backlog of billions of pounds on the roadworks. So it's not a pretty picture. But highways are doing their best, and they're doing their absolute best to keep the roads safe, because that's what they must do. That's their primary statutory aim. A bit of good news, hurrah. We did manage to do one significant project last year, which is in Oakwood House in Maidstone, which was our old conference centre. We turned that into an excellent new courts for our coroners, because they haven't had that before, and also a very attractive wedding venue. There's a number of different rooms in there. We provide a very good wedding venue for citizenship ceremonies for people who want to use it. And I think I'm very pleased to get that up and running. It's got a very nice garden, you can use the photographs, a very attractive facility. I think in conclusion, I said at the beginning it's been a tough year. However, I'd just like to stress we have not actually gone insolvent, as many have. We have, nor have we sought government assistance, again, which many have. And we have delivered robust services for the residents of Kent. And I think we're all not exactly proud of what we achieved, but we are quite pleased we've got where we got to, because it was looking very difficult at one stage. And there are numbers of local authorities which are seriously looking at going broke in the next year or two, and we're not in that position. We do have robust reserves, but it is very difficult indeed. I have very much enjoyed representing Wittersham in the County Council. I've got another year to do before we have the next elections. I haven't declared my hand, but I may or may not be standing again, but I'll see. I've been doing it for will be 24 years then. It's probably long enough for anybody. So I'll let you know. And thank you very much for letting me represent you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Do people have questions for Mike or points to make on his area?
Apart from the children that you were talking about,
Yes.
is it fair comment that because of our geographical situation, Kent suffers more the number of immigrants we tend to take than other counties?
Yes, it's because they all come in through Dover, basically, or around Dover, or on that bit of coast. And the Children's Act says that the children need to be looked after where they arrive. It says, I don't know why it says that, but that's what it says. And despite the Home Office mandating a dispersal system to the rest of the country, you can't do it. It's against the law. I mean, it's not a problem if it was dispersed around the country. 1,000 children in Kent represent about 40 to an individual authority, which would be a non-problem. But 1,000 children is a big problem for us, as you can see.
Do we have to look after their parents as well?
These are unaccompanied.
But there are lots of adults coming over.
Well, yes, that's a different case. It's a different problem. That's not constituted in Kent.
Okay.
It's only in Kent the Children's Act refers to.
Okay.
Greg.
Just out of interest, you told us about the European entry assessment system and delays. Is that a Kent County Council matter? The delays obviously become that. But
No, it's not a Kent County Council matter. It's a border force matter. And
Yeah.
but the consequences are our problem.
of course, but one looks to Border Force to prepare.
Indeed,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes.
Yes, over there.
Right. So, I'll give you that. I'm Des Brown from down Small Light Peening Quarter. About the road down there, I don't know if you know about that sharp bend down there. We've had so many in that water in there. Do you know the sharp left-hand bend before you get to Ellen Terrace? It's just about wide enough for cars, but the trouble is, I reckon, I haven't actually seen it happen, but they come from Tenerife, they could probably come too fast, then they find the one coming from Wittersham is over the white line, and they pull over, and then they finish up on the grass where the other side, and they finish up in the river. But and then my old chap, give them that, there's a bit of green the other side there, because where the curve is, that's where the river come up years ago on that side. But you give them that bit of green, but all they do now is just mow it, don't they? You know, and it wants a bit of hard air and make it wider. Then they took that bit of green off. Even lorries could overtake each other on there, but I mean they can't. You know, it's someone's going to get dreamed it in there one day. I reckon, you know.
Well, I've certainly put that idea to highways. Could you possibly drop me an email to
I ain't got no email.
Okay, well, perhaps if you could drop me an email on that. Just
You'll
give
give
me
them
the framework.
So are you farming just on that corner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that's your land
Yeah.
just around there.
Yeah.
Understand?
Yeah. Well, I mean, years ago, I remember getting off the bus from Wittersham, and a couple got on the bus, a double decker, and it finished up in the river on the left side. I never see it in there, but I mean, how they got it there, I don't know. You know, but, then we had halfway up along there, we had lorries in there opposite the lay-by, what we call the lay-by on there. They was going in there, they just touched the Virgin in, they went. We had turf in there, turkey food, and coal, and I don't know what, we all went in the same place.
Right. Okay, well, that's a point that we'll get passed on.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit of green that wants you putting hard, because it's just, the old man give it to them, and as long as they put a pipe under the road, which it made it, because it used to flood the other side, though the other side was a bit higher. There must have been a pipe under that road years ago somewhere, I think, but we could never find it. We used to dig up one there and try to find one, but you know, but it made the king to the grain over there.
Okay.
I remember following the mortar up with a plough on that side, which I mean, the water was just pushing up the fur. We dug up, rained up to the Ellen Terrace. There's a pipe up there in there, but it's too high, you know, the outlet.
All right, well, that is in Wittersham, just.
Yeah.
By about 10 yards. Thank you very much. Hello.
Hi. We all know that there's been a sinkhole and it's now been fixed, which is great. And obviously there's problems that were in diverting of all the traffic. Why does Kent County Council Highway have not removed the signs that say road closed? Because there are people not going through Wittersham. And that's over a day. But it's been open.
Well, the site is under the control of Southern Water.
But that's not an answer.
Well, I'm sorry, but the site is under the control of Southern Water, and they have done traffic management on it.
So does Kent County Council then fine them?
Well, the utilities have the right to repair their own effect on the road, and also they do the traffic management to affect that. I mean, that's the law.
I accept that, but they've fixed it. They've done that bit. But the traffic management still continues to be inadequate. You know, people are still having to go around, cost money, bad for the environment.
Well, I don't know whether there's been something falling in the middle, but my understanding is, as of today, when I got an update on it, was that it was still under the control of Southern Water, had not been handed back to us yet. That's the situation as of this afternoon.
It's all tarmacked over, you get through it.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure the repair's been done, but actually the traffic management has not been
The
handed back
signs
to
are
us.
still up there anyway.
Can I just come in? Obviously I've known that that's happened today, and this afternoon I've gone to our highway steward, KCC highway steward, and told him the road's now open. Could he please get the signs moved?
Good, excellent. Thank you very much.
So,
Well done.
that's been done.
I think it's worth mentioning that it's actually a common occurrence across
Oh,
Kent,
I know
right?
that.
And what we've been told in the past is that it's a different team that comes out and collects all the signs and what have you, and it's synchronisation, and then people locally like us get a little bit sceptical that is that road really closed down to stone, or is the one to Ham Street open, or not? And then the good old next door leaps in, and local knowledge. So in the end, you get a very confused situation, very frustrated, and I do take the gentleman's point there, because up by Cooper's Corner, it's still closed, as it was at 6:30 tonight.
Without going into...
And it causes a lot of aggravation for people, not knowing, and then luck of the draw is you think, well, I'll chance it, and you're on an important journey, you get there, and it genuinely is closed.
Yeah.
And you've got to go all
I
back.
mean, I couldn't give you more.
And that's why I think people are a concern.
It is a concern throughout the county. It drives us members mad because we keep on getting complaints about it. It happens to us too. I went out to a function the other day, and I took a diversion. I went round in circles and I came back where I started. I thought, well, this is a big great, you know, what a good start for the day. But it is extremely irritating, and we had continually talking to highways about it. But I will feed back again the concerns here. I'm sorry about this particular one. I don't think there's been a bit of an issue now as to whether it's a Southern Water or is it Kent, but we'll get it sorted out. Thank you.
I think that there's an issue, as Paul just said, a different team. I think it's actually a contractor when you have a major signing job done. I don't know about just a little tiny one, but the major ones done by a contractor. And I was given to understand it's possibly because they're supposed to be qualified in signing road closures and exactly what signs they have to put where. Of course, they also keep the great mass of signs to do it all over the county. So it would be much better, we all agree, if the moment the road is open officially, then the signs go straight away. What we know is the road is open practically because people are driving through it. Whether it's actually open officially yet, not counting the signs, whether someone has said you may now remove the signs, I don't know. And of course when they do say that, someone has to come along probably the next day and actually remove them. It's all a bit unhelpful, frankly. I totally agree with you, we all agree with you. But the whole thing comes under loads of legislation. KCC's hands are tied by what they have to do legally and the risk of accidents and all the rest of it. And it's just not very well tied together.
Can I have a word?
Well, get up there.
What you want is a contractor like my mate. Now, he used to do the roads, but he used to take the lights with him, and when he finished the job, pick them up and the signs, and away you go again. But now you have a chap there sitting there all day, waiting for him to finish his job. Sometimes they finish it, sometimes they don't. And he comes back in next week and put the signs up.
You need to put your address into KCC.
That's why everything costs so much.
Are you Simon's dad?
Pardon?
Are you Simon Brown's dad?
Yeah.
Well, Simon told me yesterday that the reason we have so many road closed signs around is that it's very much cheaper for the contractor than putting traffic lights on, which require attention and maintenance. Hence, you have sections of road that may be 2 or 3 miles long, when the area being worked is actually 120 yards. And if they were prepared to spend the money, they would put traffic lights in. I mean, I think that's an area maybe where KCC could try and crack down on.
One corner. Wouldn't it be feasible to have just half the road closed round there? I mean, that's
with traffic lights. You would with traffic lights.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So we keep the traffic going.
Okay, in this particular case, the sinkhole, it was right on the white line, so,
Was it?
and also the sinkhole went out from the hole,
Yeah.
so if anyone had been going either side, they could have fallen in it.
Yeah.
But that was that particular occasion. Phil?
It may be
Thank
that
you.
KCC should find some kind of revolutionary name project called coordination. When that was going on, we used to go down through Stone and Oxney and up Reading Street to get to Tenterden, which is a long way round, but so what. And we knew that there was going to be a road closure from the other side of Stone and Oxney from the 8th of April. And we forgot. So we tried to go there on the 8th of April, and they were working there. They could have put that back, surely, until the other thing was completely finished, because although they'd got traffic lights there, they waved us on. And so Julie's car went half down into a very deep muddy ditch. Luckily we got through, but it was pure luck. And that's the sort of situation that can happen if you don't coordinate.
Just one point about coordination. I mean, one of the huge frustrations we have is that the utilities have the absolute right to self-declare an emergency in one of their areas. If they do that, they can then dig up the road without any notice whatsoever. And makes our coordination of all these activities very, very difficult when there's a complete hole in all our plans and just come and digs the road up. And I mean, we and others have lobbying government like mad. They please take away this right of theirs, the absolute right they have to self-define an emergency and self-define the ability to just dig up the road. It doesn't make life very difficult.
Well, you're trying. Good.
Okay, other questions or points?
Can I ask a quick question? Only because I've been asked by two people to ask it. It's slightly out of your jurisdiction, Mike, so you can relax on that one.
Yeah.
But the road from Wittersham to Iden, when you get to the sort of county line, it's just, I went there this morning actually, it's just appalling. You know, anyone behind me would have thought I'd been sort of on several bottles of whiskey, because I was all over the road trying to avoid the potholes. But it's absolutely atrocious there. It's outside of your patch, if I can put it that way. It's East Sussex, because it's in their patch. Is there anything we can do? Because it is really important for people in this village, because that's one of the main arteries out of the village into Rye. What would your thoughts be?
Well, I mean, amazingly, East Sussex roads are much worse than ours. Not much consolation.
Yes, I agree.
No, I mean, we ought to do something about that. I mean, I have no idea. I'm sure there must be some sort of coordination between counties, but I mean, if we've got an issue like that, why don't I try it and let's see what happens? So I'll ask my highway people what they do. Someone doesn't hand up, we've got to answer.
Yeah, just on that point, between Wittersham and Iden, really, and Wittersham and, is it Peace and Plenty? Yeah, Peace and Plenty. Yeah. That road is atrocious, I do agree with you, but what makes it ludicrous is I go up and down there probably 3 or 4 times a day, and in the last couple of weeks I've seen when they're repairing the potholes, but they repair one pothole, they need another one, and need the next one, put the traffic lights on, move on 100 yards, do one more pothole, and it's dodged the hole.
Policeman.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. The lady here.
I have had a conversation recently with we've got a new highway steward. I work in Rye for the council. We have a new highway steward covering the area, and did speak to them and the leader of East Sussex County Council recently about that stretch of road, because I drive it every day from Wittersham and it's awful. And they have acknowledged that it really needs resurfacing. It's unlikely to happen because they don't have the money, but they are planning some serious repairs in the not too distant future. And some patching works and such like. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we should be seeing some improvements soon.
Are you the lady that works at Rye Council as
Council,
a assistant clerk?
That's right,
Yes.
yeah.
So you're Miss
So I have,
Right, okay.
I have been pushing them on that one.
Good.
And will continue to do so.
Good.
Thank you.
And also, if you remember, I've actually been in contact with the clerk at Iden, and I've also been speaking to the chairman of Iden Parish Council, and they were having somebody, their county councillor, was coming out to have a look as well. They were going to report back, and I haven't heard any more. But it's, as Jessica said, you know, there's and everywhere there's no money.
If they
but
want
I do agree that they come out, and I've seen them twice, and I think all good, because obviously I'm backwards and forwards
On
doing
that
the
road.
same. And yes, you think this is good, and they do one, and you think, you go along, you think, so where did they actually do it?
If there was any evidence, I'd lost a spring in my car, my partner's, Joe Terry has lost 2 tyres and a wheel on that road.
It's bad. Okay, can I suggest, unless anyone else has got something burning, that we move on from Mike, many thanks. And then I'll call on Councillor Johnny Shilton. Now, Johnny was elected to represent us at ABC last year when Nick Burgess, who is sitting with us here, or there, he can't keep away, he retired after being the borough councillor for Isle of Oxney for over 30 years, or at least it was Isle of Oxney by the end. It was a bit smaller when he began, he said, but they kept adding bits to it. Johnny is in public affairs for his day job, and he's already been very busy supporting us at the Borough Council. So Johnny, off you go.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. I know exactly what you're all thinking tonight. Nick Burgess looks weird this year. Not so. So it's been my first year. Thank you very much for electing me in May. I've been getting out and about and learning a lot. I've taken on a shadow portfolio with the council as my group is in opposition, and a number of committee positions. We're pleased to hear that one of those committees is going on tonight. It's called the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and it's talking about the waste contract. I'll come on to that in a minute. Ashford Borough Council is a minority coalition administration. This obviously is quite difficult for everyone. The focus needs to be on reducing the council's deficit, as you'll have heard from Mike. Many councillors agree on this fact, and only disagree on the methods by which we get there. For the first time this year, Ashford Borough Council's own budget scrutiny process found its budget to be unsound, which is concerning, and its deficit continues to grow despite higher taxes. That said, it continues to be considered on a going concern basis for the time being. I've been pleased since being elected to vote for an increase in fines for fly tipping, graffiti, littering and dog fouling. I want to live in a clean borough, as I'm sure you all do too. Speaking of dog fouling, I've worked with parishes, including Wittersham, to retrieve the dog bins which were taken from them by ABC. What appears to have happened is that Ashford Borough Council has looked at a map of dog waste bins and, without visiting the rural areas, decided that they must all belong to it, despite not collecting them, and so simply removed them. They have apologised sincerely, and we are working, Yvonne and I, on replacements. I'm currently waiting on Aspire to secure the return of the bins, which will be put back. Evidently, Ashford Borough Council needs to work on its communication skills. Speaking of Ashford Borough Council's communication skills, the council has also implemented a new waste contract. You may have noticed. As you will already be aware, it has not been a resounding success. Many residents tell me that their bin would be due to be collected on Monday, not be. They would go on the website to report it as having been missed on Tuesday, only to be told that it was due for collection the next day, so they couldn't possibly report it. By the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and indeed in some cases 6th time they'd been through this process, they were understandably sceptical. I've been working day and night to secure all bins being collected in the village, and I was going to be pleased to say that at my behest, the council repeated many bin collections and on Monday did a double round collecting food waste, black bins and recycling bins from across the village. However, on arriving here this evening, a gentleman spoke to me and said that his bin has still been missed. So I will work on that, and if your bin has been missed, please come to me. I have the personal phone number of the person to call to get this done at this point. We're on first name terms. This is just another example of this council's complete inability to keep residents updated on major changes to services. I was pleased that Poplar Road has reopened. I know Mike's worked hard with KCC and Southern Water on this. More immediately, I've also been helping residents on a number of issues, including but not limited to planning, and have taken particular interest in the state of the council-owned housing stock, which I've deemed to be inappropriately maintained in many cases by Ashford Borough Council. I've delivered so far on my promise to hold regular surgeries in the Isle of Oxney. We've already had one here in Wittersham. The next surgery will be in Appledore this Saturday, and I hope to be in Wittersham again in June. Everyone from the Isle of Oxney is welcome at any surgery. I move around to make myself more accessible rather than for any other reason. I'm delighted to have donated through my ward member grant to get the bus shelter refurbished. Everyone has done a fantastic job and I think it looks really good. If any other clubs or societies are represented here this evening think that they would like some support, I'm more than happy to help them out. I also wanted to take a moment before finishing, and I kept it incredibly short for you all, to take a moment just to reflect that we're really lucky to have so many hard-working parish councillors and a hard-working clerk here in Wittersham. I know they all work really hard every day to deliver for the village, and I look forward to continuing to work with them as we do try to do the best for Wittersham.
Thank you, Johnny. I think the small piece of paper doesn't, or it belies the fact that it's very small print. Who'd like to ask questions or make points for Johnny?
I'd just like to make a point about the collection of the refuse. In the little booklet they say we're using smaller vans because we use less diesel.
Yeah.
But the van gets as far as Bates Farm down Swan Lane and it gets full up, goes off. And it can't do the rest of the street.
Well, don't worry, they've saved money on diesel by having smaller trucks, but they've compensated for it by buying more trucks this week, so I'm sure that's worked out terribly.
Diesel trucks?
Yeah, it's a really silly idea.
Yeah. So we haven't had our collection today either, so.
I will speak to you at the end and get your address if I may.
Just a little bit of feedback on the new bin contract. I spoke to the bin drivers on one of their first days, and they told me that they had been given no guidance where they should be picking up, which routes they should take, which streets were where, and they needed a lot of help from us. Fine, we can give them help, but actually they were pretty clueless, and I don't blame the operatives for that. So I think there's something Ashford and their contractors need to do here.
Absolutely. So one of the things that was sold to us as members was a good idea, was they're keeping the same staff. Fantastic idea, except they've assigned them all to different routes. We've got people from Ashford and then people that used to do Wittersham doing Ashford. So we end up
waste all our Christmas presents to them.
Absolutely. It means that we're in the absurd situation that Forge Meads was collected, but Jubilee Fields couldn't be because the bin men couldn't find it.
Yeah.
It's madness. And I have already fed back and we continue to do so. It's inexcusable.
Right, Kate.
Johnny, it was good that you supported the bus shelter because the redesigned bus shelter is working a lot better than the old battered bus shelter worked. Behaviours have changed a lot, especially for the young people who gather for the 2 school buses. And at the moment, it looks absolutely fab, and it's done by a local contractor. So that is definitely a plus. But the poor old bus was one of the victims of the road not being properly reopened today and has had to go an awfully long way around. So our bus service is something we need to get better as well, and maybe you could help with that.
Happy to try, yeah, certainly.
I mean, the great improvement was Saturdays and Sunday buses. Make a huge difference for teenagers. But the actual, well, first of all, it's a very, very bumpy road from Rye to Wittersham, so the bus is pretty uncomfortable. But I think that if there is a possibility of working with East Sussex as well, or because they fund it, don't they, the 312?
They're in charge of it. I think they probably get some of the money from Kent, but they are.
Oh, okay. Well, it is because it's one of these ones that comes over the border. There's a danger that it will be forgotten about, but actually, I think we should really put value on our bus service. If you could help us with that, that would be great.
We should all work together, Kent, Ashford, and indeed East Sussex if necessary. I mean, the days of one bus there, one bus back, so you get 20 minutes at your destination if you want to catch the bus home.
Well, and obviously, as it took 40 minutes to do the detour that we've had for the last 10 days,
you missed the bus back by the time you got there. Yes.
No chance whatsoever.
Absolutely.
I just wondered, has it's beautiful, but should it not, has it been treated, or should it not have creosote or something? Is it not just going to rot again?
I can perhaps add to that. It is oak, and the aim is that it will weather as untreated oak does.
Okay.
So it should be all right.
It has to be oak to do that.
Yeah.
That's why it was more expensive than if we'd done it with something cheaper.
Right, okay, that's it.
So actually the result is it will look scruffy for a bit because
Yeah.
oak takes a while to settle
Yes,
down.
to settle down, exactly.
Kevin?
I hope I'm not going to speak out of turn. I hope I'm not. But, and I've had nothing to do with the bus shelter, but why has it got no bench in it? This village is predominantly elderly people. They walk to the bus shelter and they miss the bus. There's a 2-hour wait. Why is there no bench in it? Perhaps it seems logical to me, but might be a logical answer why there's no bench. I have looked at all the other bus shelters going into Rye and there's benches in them.
It was talked about at great length. It was a balancing act to decide whether we were better with a bench or without. The issue was on the other side of that argument. I take your point about old people, and we thought about that about older people very much, but it was predominantly sat on by young people all through the evening and the small hours, and are not always up to as much good as we would like. The reason that the old bus shelter was falling down was not entirely due to its age. Okay? So, you know, it's difficult,
I know it's difficult, it just... Perhaps I'm just thinking logical.
We did reserve the right in that meeting to install a bench at a later date, subject to demand.
Right, but at the minute we're happy as it is, and you just heard the behaviour's improved.
Yeah,
and the behaviour that was being talked of improving was not of the older people.
It wasn't the people waiting
They're
for the bus.
They're always hooligans, but the younger people have improved. Yeah.
Some time ago, I wrote to you about broadband.
Yes, you did.
And the government's position is that by 2025, 80% of the United Kingdom should have broadband. And your answer to me was, yeah, but Ashford have decided that they will concentrate their efforts on the urban part rather than us out here. What is the latest?
So I meant to write to you actually a couple of weeks ago.
Of course you did.
We so at the budget for the council, we proposed an amendment, we being my group, asking for £100,000 for rural broadband, which parishes could bid for, and we were outvoted by every other group. They opted instead to purchase a cinema. Yeah, it's a different story, but we have tried everything we can, and we still are. If we can, we will, but we have tried, and we will keep trying. We are, of course, in opposition.
Purchasing a cinema where?
In Ashford Town Centre.
They haven't already got one?
So there is one in Ashford Town Centre, and there is one just outside Ashford.
Yeah.
It has entered administration, and the council is supporting it financially.
Can I ask where you are with the broadband question? Where do you live?
Heron's Court, top of Buds.
Oh, you're Heron's Court, okay. Yeah.
So we will keep trying, and Damien knows about your query as well, because it's a very fair point.
Well,
But it's
he's not
shocking.
here for much longer, so...
Well,
He's not going to be our MP for much longer.
no, he's not. He won't be. Well, I was about to try and give you a date, but of course I don't know a date. But he will stop being your MP at midnight, some point in the middle of the night, one Thursday evening in November, I expect. There will, of course, be an election and presumably a plethora of candidates to choose from.
Can I ask something about this broadband problem? Is it something you have ever heard any community achieving better broadband coverage for, let's say, a parish?
Probably not in this country, I don't think. The idea of our proposal was that parishes would be able to bid for the money, significant sums of money, you understand. But as I say, it was sadly unsuccessful.
Can I say, it's not just the broadband per se for the internet. Anybody here who has got an alarm which is attached to the police station, it goes next year because Redcare stops. And the only alternative is by mobile communications, which is great if you've got 5 bars. You know, we're in a catch-22, so your homes, if you've got that, will be uninsured because you won't follow the stipulation of what the insurance companies require for you to be on 24-hour police, blah, blah, blah. I think that's really. I suppose if Ashford, has had the authority devolved to it from government, which is, I'm assuming, is what you're saying.
Not particularly, no, but we are trying to bid for funding on that.
But have the government not actually given funds over? Because the gigabit, there's funds there, the government have given it. Why is it not coming to us, which is specifically for broadband, not for a cinema or anything else like that? I mean, are the borough council doing something illegal with the money?
Oh no, they that's what they opted to spend the money from a different fund on. I should be very clear on that. But no, there isn't. I'm not aware of what else the administration is doing. As I say, unlike Mike, we're not in administration. We're an opposition group. I am trying my best, and we will keep trying to bid for funds. But as I say, the administration has other priorities. So we bid for money from reserves to be used from the council's own reserves rather than from gigabit funding, and we will continue to do just that.
Well, in which case, maybe that's the one for Mike Hill to take back to the county and say, because it's not just going to be Wittersham, it's going to be, everybody's going to have this challenge.
Well, thank you. Yes, I mean, I was thinking while you were speaking, it may well be an issue that we could pick up as well, so I'll certainly take that back. Thank you.
Johnny, can I always hesitate to admit this. Where I live, which is on the main road out towards Cooper's Corner, how is it that I can get 150 megabytes per second fast fibre to the premises, or whatever it's called there, and further down the road they can't? I mean, I would have thought that I would be at the end of the line for this, rather than, and all we did was we got a notification, and we had a real problem with it beforehand, and said, yes please, we'll sign up to it, and then it was installed. I mean, OpenReach, bless them, came 3 times over 6 months to install it, and I had to tell them it's already been done, because they didn't quite connect. But the fact is that we get near our router 150 megabytes per second, which is just fantastic. And I just can't understand why they couldn't roll it out to the top of your road, which is on the same main road, isn't it? I mean,
well, there's a sinkhole in between.
well, who knows what was discovered there? But is that just an anomaly? It's not just us, but it's Bernard next door gets it, and
For whatever reason, BT went along in Paul's direction and on to Palstrey and a bit of Peening Quarter, maybe all of it, and put fibre in. I think it may have partly been because they knew they had a problem with the old cable, which had broken down. It was aluminium, and they had endless complaints. Paul made many complaints, Palstrey made many complaints, but the aluminium had failed and the broadband was rubbish. And eventually they put in fibre. At one stage, not long ago, we were all due to get fibre in Wittersham, and it was on the published scheme, and then it got withdrawn just before we got it. At the moment, we're due to go to digital voice, which originally was going to be digital voice on fibre. Now it's going to be digital voice on the old copper, unless they happen to put fibre in at the same time. And that's where they are. The programmes shift like the tides. At the moment, we are due to get digital voice very soon, which has the disadvantages you've mentioned about your alarm, but it doesn't have the advantage of the faster fibre broadband and more reliable broadband. And we're just caught between the two. And it's that really, at that level, it's government, it's Ofcom, it's BT.
But somebody made that decision to do that small...
Yeah.
And
lucky you.
Well, no, it's not. That's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm listening to Johnny and Mike saying that they were going to try and work out it, and I'm just saying somebody made a decision. If you can track that person down, and I think your point about the alarm, I've often found that the avenue to go down is the medical route, the health route. There are people in this village who rely on the connectivity for medical reasons, and in fact that was one of the first things we were asked. Did we have a medical alert alarm? We don't, as it happens, but it strikes me that if you're going to try and put digital voice over something that was built before the Romans came, you're not going to have access to that at all. So maybe we kind of try and escalate it on a medical emergency platform, and maybe we have to gather details of people in the village who do rely on that, and make a case around that rather than, oh my gosh, we can't get Netflix reliably. Which we need to get to the front of the queue somehow.
That's a very sensible point, Paul. Thank you. And I'll come round to your house to watch Netflix later.
The subscription's very reasonable, Johnny.
Okay, does anyone have other things for Johnny? Otherwise, thank you very much. You've got a report now, I think, from our police constable. Let me just introduce that by saying, since last year, there's been a reorganisation of the police community safety unit in Ashford. They're community safety units, by the way. There's one for the police, one for the fire, one for the NHS, one for Ashford Borough Council, and they all work together to provide this sort of end-to-end community safety. The police part of it has been reorganised since last year, which puts police constables back into neighbourhoods. It was all PCSOs, plus 2 sergeants and an inspector, but now it's got PCs in it. But they're in small numbers. We now have PC Darren Laker as our nominated beat constable, who Yvonne is going to read out his note because he's away. But let me stress, when you hear beat constable, it sounds better than it really is. I think he has one to help him, but he is, let me put my glasses on, he is the beat constable for the Ashford wards, and some of them, like Johnny, he's got 4 parishes. They fall into what's called Urban South, and he's got Washford Farm, Park Farm North, Park Farm South. No, I'm reading the wrong one, sorry.
It's got
I've got the wrong side. Rural South. He's got Weald Central, Weald North, Biddenden, Tenterden South, Tenterden North, Wolverden and Tenterden West, Isle of Oxney, which is your 4, Weald South, Tenterden and St Michael's. That's a beat constable. It's a big beat. Nevertheless, we do now have a police constable rather than a PCSO, and here is his report.
What he's actually done is given me a list of the crimes so that you can see the sort of things that have happened.
In Wittersham or in that whole
No, in Wittersham.
huge area?
Yes, no, he asked, did we want the whole lot? I said, no, just for Wittersham, because that's what I thought you'd be really interested in. August, there was criminal damage in the street, damage to property believed to be youths, nothing appears to have been taken. August again, vehicle interference, Stock Farm, 2 unknown suspects have accessed victim vehicle via the boot, but nothing appears to have been stolen. Again in August, Poplar Road, report of a damage to a door and side gate. Report states that unknown persons had banged on door, causing door to not close properly, and side gate has been damaged. Appears in manner it was opened or closed. I'm reading what he said. His English isn't rewritten it, but it could take longer. September, Addison Cottages, the street. Report of shed broken into and items stolen. Theft from motor vehicle in October, Jubilee Field. Unknown suspects have smashed window to van and stolen items from inside. November, burglary. Unknown suspects have entered buildings and stolen numerous items, including 2 vehicles, trailers, wood chipper. January, burglary in Rye Road. Unknown suspects have broken into motorhome and gained access to garage. Various items stolen. February, theft of motor vehicle, Keening Quarter Road. The victim has been informed by officers that his vehicle has been seen driving at speed and evaded them when they put their lights on. Officers confirmed vehicle had been stolen. January again, vehicle interference in Forgemeads. Owner of vehicle has located an unknown male in vehicle, and when challenged, male has run off. Ewan Lamb News, criminal damage. In March, window of a property has been smashed by a pellet believed to have been fired from a catapult or BB gun. Then he says, since I've been in post, I've tried to patrol the area as and when I can, and I will be looking to hold an engagement meeting in the area at some point so residents can attend to have a chat if they so wish. The area of Wittersham is not causing any major issues in terms of report to police, which is good to see. I did ask him if you had any questions, I'd make a note and go back to him and ask him, and he was willing to answer anything that you wanted to know. He ran the Brighton Marathon on Sunday, so that's why he's on annual leave now.
So, any questions that people want passed on to him or comments about that situation? I should say perhaps after that long list of crimes, at a fairly minor level mostly, although obviously expensive or distressing for the people who had them, I hear usually at the Kent Association of Local Councils meeting of the Ashford Committee, which I chair, we hear from the inspector who is in charge of that unit covering all of Ashford Borough, and or his chief inspector, and they usually do reassure us that crime actually in Ashford is not particularly high. They do have some successes with what they regard, I suppose, as more serious things. They have rolled up some county lines recently, which you may have seen in the report that they put out on emails to anyone who signs up for the police emails. So, yes, a lot of low-level crime that you've heard, but they regard themselves, I think, as being on top of the worst of it.
So they haven't actually caught anybody yet?
They have, with things like county lines, they've had people sent off to jail, but not those ones seemingly. No. And frankly, there is a very thin blue line. The blue line in that way is very thin, unless something serious happens.
I can't help reflecting that most of those are very similar, actually, interestingly, except the last one, or one of the last ones, which was about windows smashed from catapults. And just it's one for us to think about, really, because I'm sure, as you say, the line is too thin, the blue line is too thin. Catapult firing long distance, smashing windows could kill someone.
It could.
And there were two that day, actually, one in Mews and one nearby. And I am sure the catapulter doesn't mean to kill someone, but it would be awful if they did. And so I just think as a community we need to keep an eye out for this and
I
try
think it's an
and
entirely
discourage it.
sensible point. I was told, I mean we were told, I was just one of them, catapults present an issue for the police in particular because, and I will try to not give you the wrong impression, we all know that police can stop and search. And they can stop and search for knives, for instance, although they have to fill in a form. For catapults, they have to have solid reasons for their suspicion. In other words, they're not supposed to stop just at random anyway, but catapults and knives are not in the same category. So if they think a youth may have a catapult, that's not good enough to stop them and say, come here, Sonny, I want to feel your, what's in your pockets. They can't do that. They've got to have evidence that they've had, I think it may be even a catapult and that they're likely to use it. They, as is so often the case, I'm afraid, whatever we think about the police and their ability to do things and achieve things, their hands are very often tied by legislation that gets in the way all the time. And of course it gets in the way on behalf of us all, but particularly the people, the miscreants. They don't want to give the police the opportunity of going too far, but on the other hand, they're held back all the time. And it does, I'm afraid, when you listen to them at the sort of inspector level and above, I also see the ACC, Assistant Chief Constable Local Policing, twice a year. It is very difficult.
Which is why I said I think it's one for us to think about.
Absolutely, I'm totally with you. The same as the sort of antisocial behaviour, and you've done a lot with Kate trying to persuade the children not to trash things, and we hope they don't trash the new bus shelter, for instance. Children are children, young people are young people, and we've all been there, but on the other hand, sometimes things go further than they should, and it, of course, can rebound on them.
Well, some of the children are still at Wittersham Primary School, so perhaps at some stage the problem with the catapult pellets, the 2 broken windows, we could get the school to deal with, to have an assembly or something about what really isn't, how unneighbourly you can be. I don't know for sure that it was the very little boys.
But it might have been.
I've talked to the next generation up and it stopped for the time being. So
This little bunch of papers I got at Ashford, Kent Police, Neighbourhood Policing Model Ashford briefing, this came into being last spring, and they've had to start filling the posts that they created as officers either came out of the college, the training scheme, or they came free from whatever, and they're always shifting them around. And it has 3 parts, which is material for what you just said. There's the beat team, you've just heard about the beat officer, Darren Laker. There's the neighbourhood task force, which is there to go and hit things that become a particular problem. So somewhere in Ashford they can go and put more time into something. And the third one is the child-centred policing team. And that is being staffed up specifically to look at children, schools, antisocial behaviour. And it's something that they used to have years ago and it just disappeared. They are bringing that back in. Visibility and engagement in and around schools, engagement with young people in the wider community, problem solving where young people are involved, prevention and intervention with repeat young people, and supporting beat officers with youth-based issues. And one of the PCSOs that's in that team is the one who used to be here, who we know was good. She's been suffering from injuries, but short of that, she's good and she is in that team, unless she gets moved.
well, if it comes up again, Jeremy, can you say that there is a case in the rural area for this kind of, what do you call it,
And
support?
catapults, yes, and catapults in particular.
Just as much as any need for broadband is the need for young people to understand that they belong to a neighbourhood.
Good point. Okay, can I move on from police? Okay. So that comes to my report now on the parish council matters in the last year. Let me start by introducing the parish councillors. First of all, Sue Mash, you heard, has apologised. She's unwell tonight. She's got decades of service to the council. She's been a governor of 2 schools. She used to be on the Outlook committee. Paul Venning here has been on the council since 2011 with myself. Alan Lloyd Smith, he apologised. He's in the Scilly Isles, I think, enjoying himself. He's also our vice what?
He's on his way back.
He's on his way back, but not here yet. He's also now our vice chairman. Hello, come in. Colin here has been on the council, Colin Sykes, since 2017. Sally Gill, until recently, the newbie here. She was elected in May 2023, since the last annual parish meeting. And the new newbie is John Newton on the end. He's since January this year and was co-opted to fill a vacancy. I should also mention 2 of our councillors who departed since we were here last year. That's Sam Collins, who didn't stand for re-election in May and was replaced, of course, by Sally. And Leslie Brown, our previous vice chairman, who resigned in December, creating the vacancy that we recruited by co-option, John. I'm grateful to them all. This is a completely unpaid public service to the community. It involves far more time and problems than any of us would have dreamed of before we embarked on it in the service of our village. So as I say, thank you to everybody who does it. Now, in terms of activities since last year, we do planning first. Last year I reported on 3 major housing applications. There was the 23 houses at Lloyd's Farmhouse, or Lloyd's Green, 7 houses at Poplar Road in the Meadows, and 30 mixed houses and bungalows at Stocks Road. The first 2 were both refused at appeal, having earlier been objected to by the parish council and refused or objected to by Ashford. And the third one, Stocks Road, that was an application for 30 houses. The Ashford Borough Council Planning Committee last summer, or was it the summer before, asked to be discussed further with planning officers in a search for an agreed scheme. The proposals have since been heavily revised. It's come down to 20 houses and bungalows from 30 on the same patch of land. The affordable number therefore has come down from 12 to 7. The Parish Council voted last month to support the revised scheme with 1 abstention, and we wait to see what the Planning Committee decides when it gets back there, bearing in mind that its own membership has changed significantly before they set out what they wanted, at which time it was still a Conservative administration. Other planning issues in summary. Wittersham Parish Council has considered 20 applications in the year. We supported 16 and objected to 4. Worth pointing out, we do support most applications. Most of them are not hugely controversial anyway, but we do support most of them. Ashford Borough Council then granted 12, all under delegation to officers. They refused 3. 2 were withdrawn by applicants. And if you're keeping up with your arithmetic, that leaves 3 where we still await their decision. There are 2 appeals outstanding to government inspectors, which presently take a year or 18 months to go through. One of them is Isle of Oxney Barn, where the applicant wants to build a new house in the corner of a field that they own next to the one they live in. And then land south of Wittersham Road, which is off opposite Palstrey, or past Palstrey, where the applicant got permission to turn a barn into offices, but now says, can I have a house instead, which is where he started before. He said, well, can I have offices if I can't have a house? And now he wants the offices to become a house instead. It hasn't actually been built, it's just the barn waiting for an approval. It's been refused every time, objected to by us, refused by them, and now it's gone to a government inspector for appeal. I think it lost an appeal before for the house as well, yes. So it's a never-ending story, you might say. Now, the Ashford Borough Council Plan 2041 is the next topic. This is the new ABC plan as in planner's plan, you know, building things, not the corporate plan. It's just starting its early stages to replace the existing Plan 2030, which was written a few years ago. Alert residents will notice we're still a long way short of 2030, but nevertheless they're now doing a new one. That's the way planning works. It's hard to understand for us normal people. A call for sites that could be put forward by their owners for inclusion in this plan was published before Christmas and has since closed. 2 sites were put forward in Wittersham, neither for the first time. Stocks Road was the first. It was submitted with an indication of 25 dwellings, halfway between the 30 that they wanted and the 20 they've got in at the minute.
Surprise.
The present, so that I've done that, and also a larger site adjoining Poplar Road, the Meadows, in that corner, that's been put in. It goes back 2 fields backwards from Poplar Road, so it's a big site. And that's been put in with an indication of 40 houses. Both of them were rejected by Ashford from inclusion in past plans, the most recently Plan 2030. They were both rejected then. But having been put forward again, they've got to be considered afresh. The Parish Council will seek to ensure that Ashford planners attend a meeting in the hall here so that residents can come along, look at the plans, discuss plans as in a field, not anything more than that, and give their opinion on these submissions. Johnny, incidentally, they said before Christmas they would talk to parishes at Calc about coming to do those meetings. Nothing has ever come through to Calc. What I don't know is whether they're cutting deals with other parishes or not, but we certainly want them here. They've come here in the past.
If you have their address, I'll happily write to them. Don't you have address, that is.
No, I mean it's the ABC planners.
Oh, the ABC planners.
Because they have to come and bring their picture of the sites and put it on a board, and then let people fill in a thing saying why they don't like it, or whatever. Okay? At the time of Plan 2030, which was being done in about 2014, there were 3 sites, and they went in their own ways, but other sites were slipped in later. including the one that then became behind Lloyd's Farmhouse, Lloyd's Green. That was not submitted, but later on it got slipped in on the basis that it had been submitted to a previous plan and therefore they should have another go, and it was considered afresh. It's weird. I think frankly it just brings the whole thing into disrepute, but that did happen. So I can't rule out the fact that although we've only got 2 submitted, something else comes in from the, into consideration. Right, that's the plan, and it'll just carry on in its own way until we soon will be at 2041. Highways Improvement Plan is the next thing, the so-called HIP. After this council agreed a wish list, the clerk and I then had a Zoom meeting with KCC officers, which Councillor Mike Hill here also attended on Zoom, and we talked our items through to agree the next steps on each. We were aware that the KCC Highways people said that they would talk about more than one, but they would only then carry one forward at a time. I'll go through the list very briefly. The desire for a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit through Peening Quarter from the Wittersham side of Cooper's Corner. Cooper's Corner is the junction with the Walden Road, to the far end of the houses going down the hill, plus a short stretch of Wittersham Road going off towards Walden. That was taken forward by KCC for a speed survey, which they did. They then agreed it was a plausible scheme, but then they needed to carry out consultation, which we assisted with, and then to produce a traffic regulation order, both of which, the consultation and the traffic regulation order, we agreed to pay for, both since completed satisfactorily, and now a formal design is underway at KCC at our cost. And then implementation can be carried out, also at our cost. And the signage will include beware of horses or something like that, as well as obviously all the speed limit signs. So that one we're making progress on. Other items in our wish list, there's the footway near the hairdresser's shop where there's the piece of grass which we would like to pave. It's finally been agreed in principle after a lot of discussion. KCC were very much against it, but we have persuaded them. But they've now got to work with the utilities because there may be things underneath the grass. We'll need to pay for it as well as the eventual work to be taken forward, and that'll be once the 40-mile-an-hour limit has been done. It has a safety justification, but it's still very slow. White gateways, you know the sort of gateways when you come to a village and it says 30 mile an hour and you've got, well, we've said why don't we have them? The tented end has been agreed as part of the design of the speed limit. The Rye end depends on the Stocks Road development, because if Stocks Road goes ahead, they have said they will extend the speed limit out towards Rye by another 120 metres. It would be good if it was more than 120, but that's what's in the proposal. So there's no point putting a gate up until we know where that finishes up. The speed indicator device, you know, the thing on a pole that says how fast you're going, and we move it around the village. We want that in Swan Street as well as in Poplar Road and Stocks Road and the street. The Kent officer is implacably opposed, said it's not possible. We'll return to it when other things are moving forward. When I had the head of Kent Highways here walking around the village 3 years or so ago, we walked down there and I asked him about that, and he said he didn't see any reason why we shouldn't have it, so we'll keep pressing. The problem is who owns the land. Kent County Council has control of land next to the highway, but they don't like it if they don't own it, and they don't. So, one of the ones we've got is on Ashford's land, and they insisted on a formal legal agreement that they could put it on a bit of Ashford land. So there are obstacles everywhere. The footway from the bus shelter towards Hillview Garage and Mill House, that depends on Stocks Road development. Stocks Road needs to have a path which they want on the north side. The council have suggested that maybe it should come to the south side and go through Coronation Field. We should have a path going up there anyway, and that came down as far as the gate by the bus shelter, that would solve everything. We've already got tarmac in the Memorial Garden. We can extend it to the corner by the garage. But it's up to the developer, who would have to pay for it. We're not going to pay for it. It'd be up to the developer and up to the planners at Ashford. But it's a good way of doing it, getting people off the road there. A chicane on Stocks Road, we thought we may as well ask for what we want. A chicane on the 30 limit at the end of Stocks Road, when it's extended, if it ever is. Kent County Council Highways people have said that you can't have a chicane unless you light it with a street light, which makes it impractical. Now there are interesting things come up there, Mike. There's a chicane in Leeds as you go from Langley to Leeds, you all know, and there's a light there. But that light, which is a new one, is on a wooden telegraph pole, which we've been told here, Kent County Council won't accept them on telegraph poles. So if they can't have it on the telegraph pole, I don't know if they're going to put a new lamp standard in, or they're going to do away with the chicane. And when we come to talk about chicanes, there is effectively a chicane, but not one that KCC built, which is the little humpback bridge in stone by the ferry, with one way working. There's no light. And you'd still bump into people just as much there as anywhere else. In fact, the bridge makes it worse. So a lot of these rules are rules except when they're not rules, obviously. Other highways issues, I can't miss mentioning potholes. We continue to report them, of course. They're sometimes attended to. I think even Mike agrees that highways performance is lamentable. We all know that, but Mike understands also why it's very difficult. I mean, obviously it's not good enough. Nobody likes it. New money's been made available. You've heard all that. We know KCC finds itself very short of funds. I won't go through what Mike's already said. I should also add that most of the problems we have in reality, I think, are not really made by councillors at Kent. They obviously oversee it, but they have got lots and lots and lots of officers who have to work these things out. And the councillors have to front it up, and Mike does valiantly year after year. But you know, it is a very difficult time. We're in correspondence now with KCC about the brick path and the open space in front of the churchyard wall with regard to necessary maintenance and long-term settlement, and Mike has kindly agreed to take that up with officers and see what's possible. And I imagine once you saw that thing I sent you, you could see the complication and the history, which goes back 100 years. Very helpfully.
I'm not going to promise an immediate answer.
No, not at all. No, I realise that, but at least I know you've got it and you're working on that as best you can. Yvonne the clerk met the KCC drainage engineer, the relevant one, to support Nicholas Hurst's concerns regarding provision problems of surface water running down the street, and there was progress made there, more to be done, but at least some steps, I think.
I can actually
Please, go on.
add that the other side now the ditch should be cleared, I think, week beginning the 22nd.
Oh, brilliant. So not long at all.
And that will be done, and there should be a pipe put underneath the entrance.
Oh, the one that's going to be done?
Yes.
The entrance to
the cables.
Don't mention cables.
We know all about the sinkhole, major disruption and everything. I think we can probably all judge that it was a quite slow response at the beginning and a brilliantly quick finish at the end. You know, you get the one and you get the other. I did tell every time I saw Kent County Council officers there or anybody else, the official diversion route from one side of the barrier to the other was 25 miles, which made it a bit special. I did find, which was a bit worrying, and I don't know what you make of this, Mike, that early on when I rang the emergency out of hours numbers at both KCC and Southern Water, it was on Good Friday, both of them were answered by contractors' staff in Lancashire at home.
No,
No, it was not Delhi. and it wasn't an Indian in Manchester either. It was Mancunians or similar. One sounded very Bolton to me. But I just thought, that's the emergency number. And by the way, all that they could do was to say, I'll send a message. One of them couldn't get onto the map. I mean, obviously, the system wasn't working properly. One of them got onto the manager and said, it's obvious the system's not working because they couldn't do it either. Of course, it's all cost saving, but the trouble is that you could have a catastrophe and absolutely unable to respond because everyone says, oh, well, it was a bank holiday, but you're a 24-hour service, you know. So it was worrying.
You did get a response from your county council on Good Friday.
This was good. This was good. Yes, with a shovel. Right, but let's be fair. After 2 weeks, things then improved rapidly, and it all happened very fast at the end. Public rights of way. Our specialist is here, Yvonne, who is a trained rights of way something.
Countryside access walk.
Countryside access walk, that's the words. I've got it written down here, it's further down the page. Along with Trevor, the two of them do it very, very well. And they report problems they can't fix to KCC for their attention. 1879, there's a stile, it's the second path down Swan Street on the left, it's been repaired, additional steps added. 1877, the stile blocked in the field next to the meadows. But not a high priority as an alternative route exists nearby. So a hole in the hedge you can go through instead. 1824, but that's not official. 18245, the steps that go up towards the back of Lloyd's Green out of the wood are not on the correct alignment, so no work can be undertaken, but the correct alignment is unusable. A solution appears out of sight unless the landowner, which is Tim Piper, were to request and organise it. It's one of these, you know, you're between two stools. 1879A, the handrail along a bridge over a stream towards Owley has been replaced. Another sleeper to widen the bridge will be added this summer. 1878, beside the cemetery, has a broken fence. It's owned by the parish council, seemingly, and therefore we've commissioned work to repair it.
It's completed.
It's completed, even better. Excellent, thank you. That appears to mean, because it would have been once part of Wittersham House, it appears to mean that we own that bit of the footpath as well, if we own the fence on the other side. Somehow it's been wished on to us anyway. 1892A by Acton Cottage Garden, Mr Piper has taken responsibility for the stile. 8080 are problems near Palstrey. This should now be opened, but it's very muddy and not pleasant to walk, so be warned. And that's all of the footpaths. Public rights of way. Miscellaneous issues to spin through. The traditional bus shelter, you've already heard, has been fixed. It was done by Knights, the builders, and a lovely job in oak. The work was costly, and I hope that it will be left alone, in good shape. It was a memorial, by the way, to a lady who had died by one of her friends way back, 60, 70 years ago, something like that, long time. A request to Ashford to consider transferring land on Poplar Field, at least the village green and possibly more, to the PC remains under consideration by ABC. You have been trying to shake that tree with no success so far as I know.
So far.
It's been very slow. I mean, it goes back 2 years since I first talked to the Ashford Chief Executive about it. No apparent enthusiasm by them to do it. I don't understand it. The village green, at least, is of no value to them at all. They can't do anything with it. They're just in the difficult pile. Efforts are being made to replace the paving around the War Memorial and to make a new pedestrian access from the Memorial Garden, in both cases to improve the health and safety there. But the former is made more complicated by the existing unsafe paving appearing in the listing particulars for the actual memorial, because the memorial is listed. Who knew cheap, crazy paving could be grade 2 listed? It's a bit bureaucratic overreach. The coffee shop each Thursday in the village hall here from 10 to 12 is going well. Yvonne here and Leslie Brown cover week 2 each month on behalf of the parish council. Income goes to Jeremiah Greenland Charitable Trust, which supports needy villagers in Wittersham, and they handed over £100 to that recently. The Swans Asset of Community Value expired a few years ago when an application to renew it was rejected, and it's now been re-registered by ABC for another 5 years. The parish council had a stall at the May Fair. We gave out prizes in a best decorated house competition in celebration of the coronation weekend. And talking about the coronation, you may see, it just came this afternoon, that's the picture that will go up on the wall in the main hall, a nice picture of the king. Just arrived with Yvonne this afternoon. KCC consulted the parish council and the public on its desire to part with the ownership and responsibility of Stocks Mill, and we wait for further thoughts from KCC on what they're going to do, which I strongly suspect will not be much because they probably won't have many opportunities. A PC councillor has been nominated as a trustee of the prospective Judith Mary Training Charity, which is being set up in the village by David Williams and his family to cover Wittersham and Stone, to help young people get training and help finance their training in small ways. An initiative by Greg and Kate, sitting in the front row here, to begin a village climate change group is supported in a small way financially by the parish council and attended by myself. And when I say supported financially, what I mean is we pay the costs of hiring the hall here for people to come there.
And it's on Saturday, this
And on Saturday,
flapjacks.
the parish council arranged training in the hall on CPR. Pulmonary, something or other. Resuscitation, is it? Yeah. And use of the defibrillator machine, which is on the front of the hall. The training was done by Wealdon First Responders. It was very well attended. They did 2 sessions. The parish council is seeking a new free issue defibrillator to be installed outside the shop if we get the approval, the money to buy it. And Dax has said in principle he's happy to have it there. Paul Hutchison, who's not here tonight, he's volunteered and been trained by KCC to become a digital champion for the village, and he's available to advise and help residents with the difficulties they have in getting connected or getting online or whatever, and will generally attend the PC coffee mornings on the 2nd Thursdays each month. We've already heard all about the dog waste bins going walkabout and being replaced. I won't go through that again. We've had goalposts erected by Alf, the caretaker who's at the back, on Coronation Field, at the request of a resident to replace those that were trashed by the users some years ago, or perhaps by the non-users. The dying fir tree at the entrance to Memorial Garden was removed. That's owned by the parish. We got ABC's permission because it's a conservation area. Work on the new cemetery extension will begin shortly once ABC formally permits the change of use from orchard, which ended years ago, to a cemetery. It's hoped a government grant is available to us and will be approved to defray part of the cost of the new fencing and hedging along the orchard side. Sally Gill attended the online dynamic councillor course, as shows. The clerk attended various free webinars run by our accounting software supplier, Scribe, although they're not all about accounts, they do lots of things. It's all free. And free question and answer webinars run by ICCM, that's the Institute of Cemetery and Crematorium Management, of which we're a member. I attend a range of CALC meetings, that's the Association of Local Councils, including the Ashford Committee, which I chair, and the various county committees that help keep me in touch with wider changes and concerns, and John Newton there has begun to attend the CALC Ashford meetings. They're a good insight and eye-opener into parish council interests across the borough, and we find what other people are doing that we can learn from. Finance, subscriptions and donations. Conscious of cost of living pressures, we agreed a budget for this year of 35,750, which is an increase of less than 2% on the previous year, by far the lowest increase in the council tax bill, also following a 0 increase by the PC last year. Since interest rates have once again become worth the added administration, and instant access deposit accounts been opened with our main bank, Unity Trust, for short-term surplus funds, and an account with the CCLA Public Sector Deposit Fund, which pays better interest for the council's long-term reserves. The financial regulations were rewritten, the council's financial regulations, to meet what we do, the legal opportunities to streamline some of our procedures and so on, online banking and all the rest, and minor changes to standing orders. We've paid subscriptions or donations to CALC, Kent County Playing Fields Association, the Weald of Kent Preservation Society, the Institute of Cemetery and Crematorium Management I mentioned earlier, the Royal British Legion Poppy Appeal, Kent, Surrey, Sussex Air Ambulance. That will be if we agree it later on our council agenda tonight.
No, that will come in next year. This was last year's.
Oh, last year. Last year we did, and then maybe we'll agree tonight for next year. Okay, I am corrected. Outlook on Oxney, where we pay quite substantial donations to pay for the printing so that you all get it for free. And Caring Altogether on Romney Marsh, we have agreed to make donations to. They come and do 2 of the coffee mornings a month, 1st and 3rd. And finally, you'll be pleased to know, lots of people I want to thank for all their help during the year. First, all our unpaid volunteers who work to help the village and the PC. You've already been able to applaud Hilary Pettifer and her Wednesday walkers. Weeders. Also Lexi Datter and her team for gardening at the Triangle and the War Memorial Garden. Various volunteer litter pickers, both the regular ones and the spontaneous ones. Chris Teasdale sitting in the front row, our tree warden. Roger Parker, who didn't come tonight and apologised for standing in at short notice for David Chesson as our internal auditor last year when David wasn't available. Greg, who's sitting in the front there, who's helped the PC with tasks for which he has the necessary expertise, such as defining and overseeing the work on the bus shelter and providing, producing drawings for planning applications for us and things like that. Very, very helpful to us. And all my council colleagues who I've introduced, who, as I said at the start, put in far more time and effort than you'd expect in the sometimes thankless task of keeping the council running so it can take on all the responsibilities and other jobs you've just heard about, which leaves us with our minute number of paid staff who do all the heavy lifting. Alf Mather at the back, our village caretaker.
Mather.
I thought I was told it was the other one. I thought I accused you of being Alf Mather and you said Mather.
It's fine, whatever.
Right, I will forget whichever it was. He's our village caretaker. He covers 4 villages, here, Stone, Canardington and Warehorn, so it's a big area. The costs of it are mostly met by Ashford and Kent, a little bit from us. He's so highly regarded by Canardington Parish Council, as well as us, that they arranged for him to be awarded the High Sheriff's KCC Chairman's Community Award last summer, the same one that has just gone to the Weeders. That came from Canardington to Alf, because they were so pleased with what he did. We're not in a position to do that because he's an employee. But it was a happy surprise, I think, to him and us. And then most of all, as my councillor colleagues are very aware, Yvonne Osborne sitting on my left, our clerk. Her proper title, funnily enough, is proper officer, and also responsible finance officer, who keeps a diligent grip on all council business, correspondence, finances and ALF, day in, day out, carrying out the instructions of the council, answering questions or concerns from residents, and all taking far longer than the 12.5 hours a week that we pay her for. Finally, as many of you will know, this is my last annual parish meeting as chairman of the parish council, and therefore this meeting, and so my thanks to everyone for the help they've given me in almost 8 years in this role. And my term as chairman of the parish council will end at the start of our May meeting of the parish council, as it does in law every year, and the council will then elect a successor rather than me. So thank you very much. That's everything I can tell you about the parish council, and probably more than you ever thought you'd want to know. So, questions on the parish council and its business, if I've left anything out.
By the way, can I just mention Mervyn, that when that pothole occurred on Friday, Mervyn was out with, I presume it was a sheet of ply, it looked like a sheet of ply, and a wheelie bin, and guided the traffic round it. So I do think Mervyn did a good citizen's job there to avert what could have been, you know, something that could have ended up very dangerous.
Very good point.
I think it should be mentioned.
Very good point, Kevin, thank you. Quite right. Yeah, it was done very quickly, and also made sure it got reported to Kent through on the emergency number. Good. And he also, of course, was out many times putting the barriers back and taking the abuse. Other things? Go on, Kevin.
Just one small point.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Kevin.
Sorry, the gentleman to speak. Carry on.
Yeah. Okay, just one small point in the war memorial. The paving, if problematic, because it's mentioned in the listing, could be kept if kept clean. I mean, since Alf pressure washed it, it's become considerably better. It's no longer a slip hazard, it's a trip hazard.
Trip hazard,
still,
exactly.
Not a slip hazard, which is an improvement. And it did occur to me that if we cleaned it more regularly perhaps, and maybe repointed the stonework, that might be a compromise worth doing.
Indeed, but hopefully, the thing is we need to pave the back entrance out to the memorial garden through a new gap in the hedge, so that people don't have to walk round in the road to get in. And so unless we're going to do that in similar crazy paving, tatty crazy paving, we have a sort of a contradiction anyway. So we can't get anything definite from Ashford as to whether the planners definitely need it, but the advice has been they think they need a planning application. So that's what you're working on there. And you did a very helpful drawing for us, and we'll see where we get to. It's one of those silly things really, and all listed structures are a problem with planning, where it wasn't listed for the crazy paving, it was listed for the memorial that was designed and made by a famous sculptor in London. But they then said, and surrounded by what they claim to be Wealdon stone. I'm a bit sceptical. It doesn't look like any Wealdon stone online. Crazy paving, and because they mentioned it, it was a kind of oh. But of course, it's nothing to do with the listing. It just happened to say it was surrounded by crazy paving. So we wait to see. But then hopefully we can do that. Kevin.
I've been told to sound cheerful.
I never said that.
I've been listening tonight to Mike Hill and Johnny Shilton about their financial problems at the council. And as you know, we're the landlord and landlady of the Swan Inn in Wittersham, and we raised some issues at the last meeting. And I was told to come along today to reaffirm the issues that I raised at the meeting. So if I can reaffirm them, I noticed that in your end of year report you mentioned that you've been able to achieve an asset of community value on the Swan. This is your third attempt. You've had one before from 2016 to 2021, turned down in 2021 and granted again in September of last year. That I have no problem with. The problem I have is the information that was put forward to Ashford Borough Council was very misleading, exaggerated, and without saying lied about, probably lied is a bit of a strong word, but certainly fabricated. I noticed Johnny Shilton's on the top desk, and he was one of the 3 committee members who approved the ABC. He's looking at me gone out as if to say I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. But I can assure you, Johnny, you were one of the councillors.
Okay.
And if you're giving misinformation and misleading information, and you form your opinion on that information, then I don't think it's very fair. I think we went over some of these things. You know, you mentioned the Romney, I can't remember, tea, coffee morning. The only time we ever did the coffee morning was so that we could vote for Johnny Shilton to become our local councillor. It's never been used before, and it's never been used since. We also raised the problem of the bush shelter. These points might seem trivial, but I've been sitting here all night listening to lots of trivial things. And you raised the point about the Kent County Council library. I came here a year ago with Alf to fight to get the library on that car park. We wanted it on the car park. It's never been allowed to go on the car park. It was refused by Kent County Council. Yet, in your application, you put down that the library uses the car park at the Swan, which it doesn't. So there's 2 points that you've made that are totally fabricated. Third point is you mentioned that it's the only pub in the village. I noticed one of the councillors on the table tonight has written the Swan is a vital and much needed social hub in the village. Well, it's not used by hardly anybody in this room. I noticed Celia's in tonight, who used to use the restaurant 5 or 6 days a week, and I noticed Betty's in and a couple of more of my regulars here. But the pub isn't used by the village. They wanted a pub, but they don't use the pub. Now, I don't know why they don't use the pub. We've tried food, and I also noticed that in your application you said that the pub did excellent food and was thriving. That was about a week after I sat with you, Jeremy, in the restaurant and told you that I was really struggling and it wasn't doing very well at all. So me having that conversation didn't have any influence on what you put in your application for an AVC. Also in the AVC, like you said, you put it's the only pub in the village. You failed to mention the Ewan Lamb, which is a pub, could open up tomorrow if he reapplied for his licence. It's still registered with Ashford Borough Council as a public house, and you can look on the government's business rates and it will come up. Also, there's a social club that does lots of events. I've known of weddings there, cricket, football, engagements, christenings. None of that was mentioned. So when you put in your application, it's made to look as though the Swan is the only thing in the village that does tea mornings, which it doesn't, provides space for the library, which it doesn't, is the only pub in the village, which it isn't, does excellent food, which I've informed you we did do excellent food, we just didn't have enough customers to buy that excellent food. So people like Celia lost out, and she was using it 6 days a week. You know, I haven't brought the letter tonight, so I can't go through it word for word, but I do feel that if you're sending in letters to the Ashford Borough Council, they should be honest, they should be balanced, and based on facts. And I'm asking you to look at that letter, go back through that letter, point by point, and then re-put that letter back into Ashford Borough Council. So Johnny Shilton, sitting on that desk, can look at it with confidence and make his decision with confidence. Last point, I noticed you put in 3 applications for AVCs on the Swan. How many have you put in on the Ewan Lamb? Over to you.
I'm not going to spend too long replying to that, Kevin. Firstly, the parish council has only ever put in 2 applications.
They put in 3. They put in
Sorry,
3.
Kevin.
2016, May 2021, and 2023.
Kevin,
that's 3 applications.
Okay.
Johnny
Kevin,
Shilton can check this.
Kevin, you really have to sometimes listen to other people. Just please. The first application that was successful was put in by the Campaign for Real Ale. It was not put in by us at all. The second one we did put in, and it was rejected on a technicality. Basically, we put in to renew the application, and we were told you can't renew an application, you have to make a new one. We then made a new one, which was the third. But don't keep telling me we made 3. We made 2, or we made one that was unacceptable for a technical reason, because it was for a renewal, and we didn't put in all the facts they wanted, and then the third one was an actual application for an ACV. You can call it 1, or you can call it 1 and a bit or 2, but not 3. As for the library, we wanted the library moved back to the Swan after your concrete things that had stopped it. You always used to go there, by the way. It couldn't go there when you put the concrete across.
I didn't put any concrete across.
As soon
That
as
was
you
when
bought
the
it, or
auctioneer-
someone did.
The auctioneer put the
Oh,
concrete.
okay, well the
Yeah,
auctioneer
it
did
was
that,
us.
okay. I'll take that back, but the concrete stopped the bus going in, whether it was yours or anybody else's. As soon as the concrete was raised, we talked to Kent to get it moved back. I talked to you and you said you were very happy to have it. And as far as we were concerned, it was going back, and I have been told it did actually go back once or twice. From one of people who said that you actually gave the lady who drove it, I think it was, a cup of coffee one time. Anyway, unfortunately, from our point of view, the parish council, one of the users of the library agitated with Kent and persuaded them to move it to Forge Mead. That was not our choice, and I don't know quite how the dates worked. Bear in mind the letter that you saw when it went in for the application was not when it was written, but anyway. As far as we're concerned, we wanted it in the Swan. It did go there briefly. It used to be there, but not lately, of course, because it's gone to Forge Meads. As for the food and things like that, well, we know that you've had the curry nights, you've done the cafe, you've never done dinners. The application for community value was based on what the Swan was and what the Swan had been. You are right to say that it was already losing its way, but that's where we are. I mean, I'm sure Johnny will go and look at it again if he wants to and see whether he thinks things are wrong. It will have changed since, because of course you don't do I don't think you do the Thai nights anymore, and you don't have the cafe, but you did. Anyhow, that's about it. If you think, oh, and by the way, as far as the Ewe and Lamb is concerned, the Ewe and Lamb could be a pub if they got the licence again. They're clearly not a pub at the minute on any practical basis. And the sports club is a private club, not a pub.
But you failed to mention it, Jeremy. You failed to mention it.
I didn't mention lots of things.
Exactly, and by the way, you put in the application, it took you 2 more years to put in the re-application. 2 years. So you're saying on a technicality, so the technicality took 2 years for you to write another letter.
We had COVID at the time, didn't we?
I think the point is, even with the library, I understand both
It
sides.
was COVID in that.
Hold on, I'm just going to speak. I understand your point of you put that in because the library used to use it, etc. But the point is, I understand you wanted it there. That's great. So did we. But it wasn't. I think that's the point we're getting at. It's a lie. It's not there. Since we've
had been, we wanted it there, had been
But
again briefly.
But there's no point you writing a letter and saying the library uses the car park when it doesn't. There's no point you writing a letter saying that the Romney tea room uses it when it doesn't. That's what you put in the letter. The Romney Marsh, whatever. That's what you put in the letter. That's what wants in your application.
I'm told they used it once.
Yeah,
I've already told you that.
Yeah.
And that was when Johnny was getting elected, and I was good enough to let you use it.
Good.
And you used that as one of your main points for your application.
All right, I haven't got it in front of me. We can have that argument another time.
Because you don't like what I'm asking. I'd ask you to look at this, Johnny, because I'm not going to go away.
I have no problems with what you're asking, but I haven't got it in front of me, and I think everyone else is getting a bit fed up with this to-ing and fro-ing.
Well, I think it's very strange that one person objected it, or sorry, wanted it in Forge Meads, and it was. It's not easily seen by a lot of people in Forge Meads. It should be by the public.
Indeed, but that was county council's library plus, and that's where they moved it.
Can I say something? I think your point is a very good one, and you clearly underline the fact it wasn't the parish council's decision. We were 4 square behind it being in the Swan car park. So when we found out that for whatever reason someone, a higher authority, whatever you want to say, made that decision to have it elsewhere, we were very disappointed. But there was nothing really we could do. I think the challenge of the pub is that, with respect to it, I think you're conflating everything into one bucket. All right, and if you need to unpick it. You've made some very fair points, and I think the emphasis, and I'm not trying to just pass the ball to Johnny, but he is in a position now of authority, access to information, to listen and to take every point into consideration. And things have changed. Jeremy's point that at one stage when all this was being considered, we were right in the middle of COVID. We couldn't meet as a council in the normal way. We had to meet remotely. Times were really, really different. But we've now moved on. But I would urge you not to put in the same bucket the fact that we've got a wonderful pub called the Ewe and Lamb opposite Greg and Kate, because we haven't. I mean, I'm not disagreeing on the legal side, all right, at all. But the fact is, I've lived in the village for 14 years, and I've never been allowed into that building for a drink. So in my humble view, it's not a pub. And you make some very good points, some of which could be addressed by people's personal... People vote with their feet. I'm sorry to say, that's the harsh truth.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, you've raised some valid points. All we can do as a group of volunteers is to listen and try and pass that on. And Johnny is elected to be our borough representative, and he said publicly here he will look into it. These things move like snails in my view, so we have to be patient. But your points, I know you're making them with passion, and you're right, but we are listening. And sometimes it might seem as though we're not, but I reassure you collectively as a council we are. And the final point is, you know, I feel strongly that there's a time and a place to directly have a go at Jeremy, and now is not it with respect.
No, that's fair enough. I'll just make one point. The letter was written in August 2023. As far as I know, we didn't have COVID in August of 2023.
Okay. We were playing catch up on so many issues that we had a backlog of all sorts of things there. Factually, I'm not disputing that.
You know, I've sat here for 2 hours. I wanted to make me point. I've made me point.
Well, you must, if you've been sitting here for 2 hours, you must be absolutely overwhelmed with the collective efforts of the group of volunteers in this room.
I do, but I've also noticed Arsenal's 2-1 down, and I want to get back for the second half.
Well, maybe you've answered, Kevin, with respect, maybe you've answered your own question in that final sentence.
Okay, let's draw that to an end. I think Kevin's explained all the points he wants to. Although it is on the agenda for the parish council meeting, which we will be doing in your absence if you've gone back to watch Arsenal, but that's up to you.
Hopefully they're more exciting.
Right, does anyone else have anything else they want to say before I close this meeting? Anybody else? Okay, I'll close the annual parish meeting then. Thank you everybody for coming and for raising the points you have and for being patient and listening to all the stuff that we've gone through in our reports and the useful points that you have raised. So thank you very much. Everybody is welcome to stay for the parish council meeting if you wish, or any part of it, but equally you can go